Okay, at the moment, we just cannot close this modal. We can't press escape. We can't click anywhere. We can't click a button inside of the modal to close this out. So now we're going to look at 3 ways that we can close this. Now, the 2 ways that are pressing escape and clicking outside are handled very easily with the dialog. So our dialog from Headless UI will fire off an event when the escape key is pressed or when we click the outer container. And that is just inside of here, and it is closed. So we can just do something when this event fires, basically. Now, how are we going to close this modal? Well, again, Momentum Modal provides us, via this composable, the ability to close a modal. So this is that Boolean value for whether it should be shown, and this is a function which we can invoke to actually close the modal off. So let's go ahead and say, when this close event happens, when we press escape or when we click outside, then just close off this modal. And then show will be set to false, and therefore the entire transition route will disappear and it will transition out for us. So let's just try this out. I'm going to go and just refresh the page. I'm going to hit escape on the keyboard. Sure enough, it disappears. Let's open the modal again and let's click anywhere outside of here, and sure enough, this works. So anywhere inside of the modal, we can still click, obviously, but anywhere outside of this, it disappears. So very, very easy to close that off. Now, just while we're here, let's go ahead and add some additional styles onto the dialog. I'm just going to set this to relative, and I'm going to bump the Z index up, because otherwise later we're going to have issues with things appearing over our modal, which of course we don't want. Okay, this is working really nicely, but how do we programmatically, or more appropriately, click a button to close this modal off inside of the modal? Well, there's a couple of ways that we can do this. We could build out a general close button inside of the modal itself. So we could do that within the dialog panel, or we could do this within the component itself just here. So let's look at both ways, and both ways pretty much do the same thing, but the second way we need to expose the close method via the slot. So if we wanted to close this off inside the dialog panel, let's go ahead and just create out a button in here. Now, I'm not going to style this up, but obviously you would probably have an X icon and put this in the top right hand corner. And let's go ahead and attach this in. So I'm just going to say close modal, and let's go ahead and say when we click on this, what do we do? Well, we just invoke that close. That's pretty much all you need to do. So now you have in every single modal a close modal button, which of course would probably sit at the top here, that when you click it, it just closes it off. So incredibly simple to do. Now, if you wanted to use this functionality outside of your modal, how would we do this? Well, let's just try out doing this in our template. So I'm going to go ahead and grab the import for use modal and invoke the composable, and we're going to do that inside this modal here. Now, just before we do that, let's get rid of our inner close modal button, because that's completely different. And let's just try and invoke close from here. We don't need show here. So let's go and create a button within the slot of this modal to close this modal. So let's again say V on click and close, and let's see what happens. So let's go over, open the modal up, and let's click close. Sure enough, it works. So you could do this, but a nicer solution would be to pass this close method down into our overall slot, so we can just use this without having to import this and invoke this composable every single time we want to implement this functionality. So it'd be more convenient to just expose this via here, and then we can just invoke it. So by that I mean getting rid of the import and the composable from our example component, our example modal, and then having this available instead. So how do we do that? We can do this just with view, and we can pass this close method effectively down to any of the slot content that we have. So to do this, we just go ahead and bind in this close method directly into here, and then we'll have it available directly inside of here. So the way that we now use this is we say vSlot, and then we extract out what we have bound into this slot and pass down. So that is just close. So now, rather than having to import this up here every single time we want to close this from inside of our modal and each individual modal, we just have this available inside of here now. So we're calling this from here, and we should see that this works in exactly the same way. So there we go, 3 ways to close this. And if you need to programmatically close this, you can just go ahead and import this from there. We'll look at an example of that a little bit later, because that can be really important based on a certain function that you're calling within any of your modals.